There are moments in life that test not just your strength, but the strength of those watching from the sidelines. Sometimes the hardest battles are not fought in the skies, nor on battlefields, but in the everyday places we least expect. In a small town diner, on a quiet evening, when nobody thinks the spotlight will turn on them. That's exactly what happened the night a group of rough-looking bikers walked into a roadside diner and thought they could belittle a woman who had already fought battles far greater than they could ever imagine. She wasn't just any woman. She was an F-16 fighter pilot. And though she now sat in a wheelchair, she carried the strength of someone who had touched the sky and lived to tell the tale. What happened next would leave every single soul in that diner trembling and would remind the world that true heroes never fall alone. If this story grips your heart from the very first words, then pause for a second and show your love. Hit that like button, share this story to inspire someone today, and subscribe to Kindness Corner, where stories of courage and compassion come alive. And please, I would love to know, where are you watching this from? Drop it in the comments below because kindness and bravery know no borders. Her name was Captain Emily Rodas, a decorated fighter pilot who had logged hundreds of hours in the cockpit of an F-16, soaring through skies most people only dream of. She had survived missions overseas, dangerous takeoffs, and moments where her life hung by a thread. But one mission had changed everything. A mechanical failure during a critical landing drill had cost her more than her wings. It had cost her the use of her legs. In the blink of an eye, her life, as she knew it, came crashing down. The woman who once sped at supersonic speeds above the clouds now found herself confined to a wheelchair. And yet, Emily wore her Air Force jacket proudly, a silent badge of honor that told anyone willing to look closer that this wheelchair wasn't her weakness. It was a reminder of her sacrifice. But not everyone cared to look closer. That night, the diner was buzzing with the hum of conversations and the smell of frying bacon. Families filled booths and truckers nursed coffee mugs on the counter. Emily wheeled herself inside, carrying the quiet dignity of someone who had seen too much to ever be rattled by small inconveniences. She placed her order, smiled politely at the waitress, and maneuvered her chair toward a table near the window. For a while, she felt invisible, just another patron in the room. And then the doors opened. A group of bikers stormed in, clad in black leather vests, tattoos covering their arms, and the unmistakable arrogance of men who thrived on fear. They spotted Emily almost immediately. To them, she was not a hero, not someone worth respect, but an easy target, a woman alone in a wheelchair, vulnerable. They circled her like wolves, sneering at her Air Force shirt, mocking the insignia, laughing cruelly. One even leaned down, tapping her wheelchair, saying things she had heard far too often since her injury, words that cut deeper than bullets. They mocked her legs. They mocked her service. They mocked the very sacrifice she had made for people like them, who would never understand what it meant to serve a cause greater than themselves. Emily's heart pounded, not out of fear for herself, but for the memories it triggered. She remembered the crash, the fire, the moment medics pulled her broken body from the wreckage. She remembered nights of therapy, of tears shed when she thought she would never walk again, of screaming in frustration at a life that had changed in ways she couldn't control. But what hurt most in that diner was not their laughter. It was the silence of the people around her. Eyes dropped to plates, hands fidgeted with napkins, and everyone seemed too afraid to speak up. She wasn't just fighting against cruel words, she was fighting against indifference. And then, just when it seemed like her dignity would be trampled in that diner, the door swung open again. Boots echoed against the tiled floor. One by one, In perfect unison, they walked in. Not one or two, but 35 men and women in Air Force uniforms, their shoulders squared, their eyes sharp, their presence commanding. They hadn't come there by accident. Emily had been on her way to meet her unit, her brothers and sisters who had served alongside her, who never left one of their own behind. They had chosen this diner as their rendezvous point, and their timing was nothing short of divine. The bikers froze. Their laughter evaporated like smoke in the wind. For every sneer on their faces, there was now a look of unease, of sudden realization that they had picked on the wrong person in the wrong place at the wrong time. The Air Force personnel spread out across the diner, not raising their voices, not needing to throw a single punch. Their presence alone was enough. One of them simply placed a firm hand on Emily's shoulder, and the unspoken message was clear. She was not alone. She never would be. The entire diner, once silent with cowardice, erupted into hushed whispers and gasps. The bikers shifted uneasily, their bravado shrinking with each passing second. They backed away, their mockery replaced by shame. They tried to cover it with nervous laughter, but everyone could see it. The power had shifted. The predators had become prey to the weight of 35 pairs of eyes that carried the discipline, loyalty, and silent ferocity of warriors who lived by a code. Emily looked up at her unit, tears threatening to spill. For so long, she had fought battles in silence, thinking her struggles were hers alone to bear. But here they were, proving with their presence that the Air Force was not just a career, not just a uniform, it was a family. Her wheelchair did not diminish her. In fact, it amplified her story because heroes do not fall. They rise again and again, no matter how many times life tries to break them. The bikers eventually slinked out of the diner, their laughter gone, replaced by the heavy sound of retreat. And in their place was something far greater. A room full of strangers who finally found their voices clapping, cheering, and some even crying at what they had just witnessed. The waitress behind the counter wiped her eyes with the corner of her apron. And the families who had once stayed silent now looked at Emily with awe. Not pity, respect. That night, Emily didn't just reclaim her dignity. She reminded every person in that diner of a truth we often forget. Heroes don't always stand tall. Sometimes they sit in wheelchairs carrying scars the world cannot see but with hearts that refuse to give up. And when one hero is mocked, an entire family of warriors will always rise to stand beside them. So dear friends, if this story touched your heart even a little, I want to ask you something simple but powerful. Please like this video, share it with someone who might need a reminder of courage today, and subscribe to Kindness Corner so we can continue spreading stories that light up the world with hope. Your support means more than you know because together we are building a community of compassion and strength. And before we close, I have a special request. Comment below with one word, just one that describes how this story made you feel. Was it proud, inspired, moved? I would love to read your words because your voice matters.